hosted by Brandy Pet.
Welcome, everybody. It's me, Brandy P. with Yes, I Am the Veteran podcast, and I'm joined by my amazing co-hosts from the Sentinel Collective, Miss Amelia Peacock, and the 6-time Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and all-around badass Pacifica Sour. How are you doing, ladies?
Good evening. How's it going?
I'm here. I feel like we were just here, by the way. Weird sense of deja vu, huh?
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy month, and so we're definitely trying to accommodate the best we can. And so I know it's definitely been an eventful month already for March. I know it is Women's History Month, and so I think that it is amazing that we have us three on the podcast with such an amazing guest for us this evening. And so for me, like I guess I would say with podcasting, I'm always very honored to meet the guests that we have. And so our guest tonight is no exception to that role. And I met her recently with Amelia, and it was amazing to hear her story and all that she is doing. So let's go ahead and introduce Miss Leah Stiles. Okay. Hey, sis, how are you doing?
I'm doing great tonight. Happy Friday Eve.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Happy Friday Eve to you as well. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And sis, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers that are just now meeting you?
All right. So I am Leah. I am a retired Navy senior chief. I also served the whole time as a Navy spouse, and then we passed the torch to our son, and now I'm a Navy mom. So I wore a few different hats for that. I'm also the founder of Sea Waves, which is the nation's first and only organization exclusively dedicated to eating disorders for our military community. And as of last week, I am an author, and my book is a #1 Amazon bestseller. So I get to add that to the list, which is really exciting and a whole new hat.
And sis, what branch did you serve in?
The Navy.
Navy. All right. Well, we got another Navy on the show tonight, Pacifica.
I know I heard senior chiefs, it's all right. Mm-hmm. And I heard her say it the first time. So I was
I'm sorry.
Navy mom. She was Navy. She was a Navy spouse, and then she has a Navy son.
So I know all the hats for the Navy.
She's like, for real, you just okay. I was trying to do something on Instagram when we're streaming. I promise I wasn't trying to be rude on purpose.
Oh, well, I'm curious, Leah, coming out of the Navy as a senior chief, especially with all the experience in the multiple facets of your career and even till today, how did your military experience lead you to being a veteran advocate?
I think I've always been an advocate. It's in my genes, I guess. I think I remember being a little kid and advocating in kindergarten for the people that I felt weren't being treated well, and I was just like, I think I was like a little mini justice vigilante. So that wasn't new for me, even like all the way through my service. I'm just always a person that tries to advocate, and especially for things that are mental health related and around that. So while I often say that founding a nonprofit wasn't on my retirement bingo card, it absolutely makes sense that it's there and, a good fit, looking back.
That's amazing.
So why eating disorders, though? That's kind of a curious topic. We all kind of know that, sometimes some of us are given hell for weighing too much or being a little too big in the neck or the waist or wherever, they decide that you're too big. And they give you hell about body image, period. What is it about eating disorders that touched you and made you want to do something about it?
It was my lived experience. I was diagnosed with an eating disorder when I was 11 years old. I started being hospitalized for it when I was 12 and on through adolescence. I thought that I was in recovery when I went to join the Navy. I thought that I was better. I thought I was fine. But you're right, exactly what you talked about. There's things in the military culture and in military life that cause more of this storm, this breeding ground for people that struggle with body image, body dysmorphia, disordered eating, eating disorders. So I really I joined in 2001, and my first day of A school was actually 9/11. And so I saw a shift in the conversation around PTSD. I saw in the beginning when we thought it was the generation before us and that it was only combat related. And I saw the conversations change and leaders learn about it, peers learned about it, we learned resources about it. And I kept thinking, well, eating disorders are going to be next, right? Like it's going to become a less taboo, less stigma. We're going to learn about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to make resources for it. And everywhere I looked, there was nothing. And then it was hush hush and it was stigma. And so, the first 10 years of my service, I was completely silent about my struggles with it. Last 10 years, not so much. It was quite a mess. And when it came time that I needed a higher level of care, I needed to be hospitalized. It was really difficult to find life-saving care. And I almost died multiple times trying to access that care. So I thought about it. If me as a senior chief, as a senior enlisted leader, as somebody that has a very robust network, if I couldn't access life-saving care for myself, who else is out there? So I started doing the research and looking into it and found that 1/3 of females and 1/5 of males in the military are also struggling with an eating disorder. And then we talk about suicide prevention, and we know that the number one cause of death for somebody with an eating disorder is suicide. So I was like, we have to talk about this. I always hoped somebody else would do it. I put it off for many years, but realized that maybe I'm that person.
Yep.
What's crazy about it, even looking back at pictures of myself, I remember folks telling me that I needed to lose weight back then. And I'm like, I didn't need to lose weight back then. I need to lose weight now, but I didn't need to lose weight back then. Anyway,
Does the Navy have an eyeball program? Because the Air Force used to have something called the eyeball program, basically meaning that if how you looked in your uniform displeased someone to the eye, they could basically put you in force PT, even if you had a passing PT test and everything was clear. Do you guys have anything like that?
To my knowledge, there's not an official program like that. And a commanding officer can order to have a PT test and a BCA test at any time if you're, checking into a new command or anything like that. But I don't think that there's an official program.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
not. It's unofficial. It's like an unofficial one, but they call it the eyeball program in essence. But I mean, I know as a medic in the military, that was something that I saw quite often with people when they were doing drill, because everyone would be taking all these caffeine pills, like diet pills, to try to cut weight before a PT test or do really unhealthy things. And what would happen is they would be so dehydrated, they would pass out within an hour or 2 hours. And I thought very much like what Leah was saying, that, why isn't this talked about more? That, and don't bring 2 liters of like soda instead of water to like desert-like conditions. Like, no, like I also wanted to do that part, but no, at the end of the day, I mean, it was something that we did see quite a bit. And, it really wasn't something that was talked about. They would very quickly send people kind of off to mental health, and that was it. And there was really no follow-up, at least in my era of service, which I was medically retired in 2009. But what was crazy is when I was in the hospital and I almost lost both legs of my right arm, they literally told me, "But you look so good. You've lost so much weight." I'm like, not the way I'd want to do it. Not the way I'd want to do it ever. And I was much smaller than I was. But so I definitely can understand where it is that you're coming from as well. And you did bring it up as well. And what I thought was interesting when I was looking at your webpage is that you really went into the link between eating disorders and suicide. Um, did you want to maybe go into depth more about that? Because I found that was a statistic I didn't expect.
Yeah, actually, right now I'm in Kentucky. I just finished the Face the Fight Coalition conference the past 2 days, which was everything about veteran suicide. And again, everybody that I talked to and every breakout session and every room I went into, everybody's just so surprised to hear that eating disorders are mental health issues. In fact, they have the second highest mortality rate of all mental health issues. We hear about PTSD so much, but we don't talk about eating disorders. And yeah, highly connected to suicide. The number one cause of death for somebody with an eating disorder is suicide. And, you know, like we talked about, 1/3 of females and 1/5 of males are struggling on the active duty side. 30% of our veterans, even family members and children, are 3 times more likely to have an eating disorder than civilian counterparts. But all of these resources that we have, which, you know, it's great to see the momentum of, you know, what we're trying to do towards suicide prevention. It's going to take a lot more than 22 push-ups, let me tell you that. And so, you know, having these real conversations, even though they're kind of yucky, there's a lot of stigma, there's taboo, but we have to acknowledge that this is a mental health issue and it is impacting our military community. And we're not going to move the needle on the 22 a day, which the number is actually higher than that. But we're not going to move that needle if we're ignoring an entire illness that's impacting our community. So we have to talk about it. These things thrive in the dark, and I've lost a lot of loved ones to suicide. There's a whole chapter in the book about the data and the overlap in between the two. In fact, I'll make a little plug. We do a quarterly webinar series on, it's titled Eating Disorder Prevention is Suicide Prevention, and it's completely free. And you get CE credits if you want CE credits. And so that's Wednesday, March 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's on our website. You can, you know, on all of our socials, you can sign up for it. Again, completely free, but it will go really into what that perfect storm is. Why me, somebody who said I would never end my life that way. I lost my mother to suicide. I said I would never do that to my children. But with my brain in a malnutrition state, decision making is not accurate. All these other factors and the isolations that come around eating disorders, it was actually on the table. It became an option for me after I said it never would. So we have to acknowledge that that's impacting our community.
Absolutely.
No, that, you know, and that sharing similar stories, you know, and I doubt that we're the only ones. I know that there's a lot of ladies who's experienced similar things, but like, I know for me, I was very fit. I was very much into sports. I was very fit. I was always active. And going into the Corps, you know, I had 2 stripes on my shirt, which meant you're a fatty. And so, like, not only are you visually identified, but it's also like you're getting less food, you're getting less stuff. And so it automatically creates that environment for that. And so I'm curious, is there a difference in the way that you've seen the eating disorders, maybe just with the culture that we're kind of talking about that's been there, or some of those things, or what areas kind of help manifest differently in a uniformed personnel member as far as like an eating disorder, or how does that manifest?
Well, you mentioned the Marine Corps, and we do know that the Marine Corps has the highest statistics for eating disorders of all the branches. significantly. And you talked about, yeah, a lot of like the language that we use in the Navy when you get put, like what Brandy said, like when you get put on like the lose weight program, it's called the fitness enhancement program, but what do we really call it? Everybody calls it the fat boy program, right?
Yeah.
And so this is all of that language, right, that even leaders use, or that we've just used over time, that maybe it's innocent, right? Maybe they don't recognize the harm that's being done. And let's talk about the harm that's being done, right? And so, yes, we know that the military has to have standards. I don't argue that. I do argue that they're archaic and that they're not a good indicator of fitness. And as Brandy pointed out, if we're having to do extreme things to cut weight and to meet these standards, to shrink our bodies, if we're abusing laxatives and dieties and doing all these things and passing out on the job, I think that that's defeating the intention of these standards. I believe the standard intention is to have strong, fit, ready fighters. But if we're creating a situation where we say, lose this amount of weight to get the check mark, the plus sign, the good job, but we don't ask how or why, how did you lose that much weight in that amount of time? And we don't care how, that's where we got to draw the line, because we're doing more harm than good. We're doing damage, right? And there's a plethora of reasons why a person's human body might not fit those standards. I mean, and we've seen the strongest people and the CrossFitters, and they can't pass. We see people postpartum, not enough time to get their body back, post surgery, there's a whole bunch of reasons why a person won't fit those standards, but there's not a lot of leeway given to commanding officers or leadership to use a little bit of common sense of, I just saw that person, run 6 miles, like very, very, very fast and very well. They're a half an inch over. Let's not lose this talent. Let's not, come from it. I've seen commands that send out the list of who got weighed and what they weighed, and it's like, this just shouldn't be this way.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Lighthouse Project and what it does, just to help people through some of these issues.
Yeah, so at Sea Waves, we have two main programs. The Lighthouse Project is one, and our Medal Education Program is a second program. So through the Lighthouse Project, it's multiple different programs in it. So we think community, camaraderie, connection. So we do wellness resources. We do retreats. Last week we did virtual confidential eating disorder screenings that don't have to go in your record. If you just wanted to know, you just got to talk to a provider and ask all your questions and get free confidential resources. We did a virtual support group for the military, and we're trying to get that more and go ongoing and make that so that it can be weekly. So we just are continually looking for ways to just have that safe space where we can come together. We know that connection is prevention. And like I said, these terrible things, eating disorders, suicidality, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all these things thrive in isolation and in the dark. So we do things to bring us together and get us connected to resources. Free resources. Free doesn't mean bad. Free can mean great, right? And I know how important it is for these resources to be confidential. And so we make sure of that too. The second program, the Medal program, it's the Military Eating Disorder Awareness and Literacy Training Program. And this has 4 tracks now. Originally, I created it for military leadership so that like, what do I wish that leaders knew? What is some things that we talked about where they're accidentally doing harm? So I developed it for that. And then we learned that there were more places that wanted and needed it. So now the 4 tracks are, and they're all NADAC accredited. And you can get CE credits for those as well. So it is still one for military leadership. Then there's one for clinicians, providers, and dietitians. Then there's one for veteran-facing organizations like Wounded Warrior Project, and all the organizations where they're helping veterans, or the military community, but they don't know how to talk about eating disorders. And then the last one is friends, families, and allies. So somebody or somebodies that are struggling, and you want to be supportive, but you don't really know how or anything about it. So we provide that training for that as well.
Outstanding.
I'm here for it. That's a lot of training, and I'm here for it as a former instructor myself. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Education is
Yeah, we
so
try to keep it just 2 hours and keep it interactive so it doesn't feel like just another PowerPoint.
It's not death by PowerPoint. Dang, I was good at those. I'm just kidding now. But no, that's amazing that you're offering so many different resources. And also, you're very good at answering questions because you've answered some of our other questions inside of your answers. I'm like, dang, she's good at this. And
I was
so,
public affairs in the Navy, so I used to have to do the asking, and I'm like, oh, I know what they're trying to ask. Let me try to hit that.
I like it.
nice. And so, how can eating disorders affect military spouses? Because that was actually something that I was reading about as well on your page, statistically. And I found that really interesting because you think about the service member and having to meet those standards, but what you're not thinking about is the spouse or their families.
Yeah, so let's talk through that. First of all, I hear from a lot of spouses that are like, well, if my spouse is cutting weight, like, I'm not gonna not participate. I'm going to try to do what they're doing and help out. So that's some of it, right? And then, even the kids, now they're watching this and they're witnessing it and they're, processing in their own way what they're taking from it. Then, a lot of times, one thing we don't talk about a lot either, don't worry, I'll be the girl to talk about it, is that we expect our spouses to be like arm candy trophies, right? They'd have to go to these like spouse parties and they have to like look the part and, be the part, the Barbies and the Kens and, those things. But if you don't believe that that's real, then we'll keep going. Also the lifestyle of the military community, moving, being away from your support system, even if you have your own, a wonderful therapist or a wonderful treatment team or program, then you move and then you might have to start back over, or so you're away from family, you get displaced with your treatment teams. And then there are also other parts of the military lifestyle that are just so stressful. The deployments and supporting. So I've been the person that's deployed, and then I've been the person at home, and I can tell you, I would choose the deployed one over that, honestly. But I will also say that it's a rough job. It's a tough job. And there's another piece of that too that a lot of people don't talk about. And that I only recently in the past year or two have really dug into and learned about. And that's how much food insecurity plays a part in eating disorders. So we have people who are living on a budget, and we see it a lot with mothers, but not just mothers. And groceries might not make it to the end of the pay period. And if it comes between a mom or a kid eating, mom's going to go hungry so their kid can eat. And so, we saw it when the SNAP benefits got pulled. A lot of our military community depend on SNAP benefits, food stamps. And then we saw an increase in those needing help and support because of the affordability of food. So that really all plays, a factor in this storm. And not each piece, impacts each spouse or family member, but there were also some really interesting studies done a few years back about children whose mothers were on Weight Watchers, and the indication how it impacted them in their relationship with food and their body, because the number one indicator in the development of an eating disorder is the pursuit of intentional weight loss. So choosing to go on a diet.
Mm.
Hmm.
Wow. that's a whoo. Say that
Sharp
last part again.
thumbs on this.
The
Say again?
biggest factor. Say it again. I want to hear it one more time. That last line, what you were just sharing.
The number one indicator in the development of an eating disorder is the pursuit of an intentional weight loss. So going on a diet.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we see diet culture. I think the last I looked, diet culture is about $65 billion a year. So everywhere you go, there's messaging. It's not just on social media. It's not just in the movies. It is everywhere you go. And it is designed for you to fail. It's designed. So people think, oh, I failed my diet. I have to try again. I'm the failure. It's designed for you to fail. Upwards of 92% of diets fail to the point where you end up gaining more weight than you even want to lose. And our messaging makes it so that we blame ourselves, that it's us. That's science. 92% is a significant number. And so it's not sustainable. Our bodies aren't made to fit what these pictures are being painted for us, and a lot of money that is spent in outward messaging and kind of hidden messaging and different things too, and so all of that is really kind of designed for us to feel unsatisfied with our bodies and want to pursue whatever it is. But think about it, almost every single weight loss pursuit comes with dollar signs and what it's going to cost. And so when it fails, that means you're going to try again and again and again. And that's more money and everything in there. But I tell people all the time, it's not you. It's designed to be that way.
That is very hard.
If you look at common culture now, or popular culture, like the rise of all these social media apps, like people feel extra pressure to curate their life to fit an unrealistic standard, really.
Absolutely.
Well, now they've got everyone convinced you need a shot to
Yes.
to make your body do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the scam is there. You need the shot until you don't need it until you can't afford it anymore, and then you'll gain all the weight back.
Well, and what a lot of people don't realize is that at this time, all of the shots that are available are lifelong commitments. If you start it, you have to be on it for the rest of your life. And we don't know that your insurance is going to cover it for the rest of your life, or that you'll be able to afford it for the rest of your life, or that you won't have other medical complications that won't contradict with it for the rest of your life. So there's not a whole lot of things we can do in our day to day that we know we can do for the rest of our lives. And I don't think that people are being really informed about these decisions that they're making when they go on that shot. Because what do we see? We see all these amazing celebrities, these wonderful athletes, these people that we look up to, and they're like, oh well, I do it, I take the shot, and it's glamorized. But all the time when you watch, I like watching the game show network at night. Like me and my husband, we watch Family Feud like it's going out of style. But the commercials, all of the medical commercials are like, oh, these different pills and drugs, and then it's like the small writing where they talk really fast, and they're like, well, you're gonna have diarrhea for the rest of your life, and you might die. Like, and it's like, I feel like that's
heart attack.
we're whispering that part, right? Like, and you're like, and then it's like, oh, depression medication, and they're like, well, this may cause suicidality, and you're like, I'm trying to take this to not feel that way. So yeah, I personally have felt a lot of confliction around when people ask me about GLP-1s. The reason why I feel conflicted is the same reason I would like other people to feel conflicted, and that is that there's just not enough information and data yet. And especially when it comes to eating disorders, right? And the military has this program called the MOVE program. And there's a lot of people that have gone through the MOVE program and really seeing its successes, and that is wonderful. And if you complete the MOVE program, it can qualify you to get your GLP-1 shot. But nowhere in that process are we screening for eating disorders. And there is nobody with an eating disorder that should be getting that shot without having a comprehensive treatment team. We are talking a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a primary care physician, a dietitian, a therapist at a minimum. And we're not doing that due process. I mean, many eating disorder providers. Last week, I was at the International Eating Disorder Association conference, and there was actually a few different breakout sessions on this. And most treatment providers, especially eating disorder informed treatment providers, will say that somebody with an eating disorder should not be on this. There were a few that were like, hey, in some circumstances it could be helpful. And I was really intrigued because I had had that black and white thinking up until then. But I will tell you that they need the support of an informed, comprehensive treatment team.
Yeah.
Well,
And
tell us about your new book, Battle Scars and Body Wars. I'm sorry, Amelia. I
I love the title, by the way.
I do too.
I possess many, so I'm here for it. I love the book name.
Yep.
Thank
Yes.
you. So the book. Each chapter starts with a little sea story about my life because I thought that it was important that there was a person that they could kind of be introduced to, somebody that they could understand the juxtaposition of the situation, that two things can be true at the same time. I was a very successful sailor. I climbed the ranks. In my particular job, I made chief petty officer faster than most females have ever done it in that rate before, and anybody in that rate, honestly. And so I was very good at what I did and very successful. And I was struggling simultaneously at the same time. And so I thought it was important to be able to show that two things can be true at the same time. So I did tell my story in the beginning of each chapter. But then there's not a book that exists that has brought together the research and data and science around eating disorders in the military. So I've gathered up all of what the doctors and scientists and academics have done for it. And so the chapter starts with my story, goes into data, information, statistics. And then I was like, wow, well, this is a lot of really heavy information. How do I expect people to navigate through this book? So at the end of each chapter ends with different resources. So whether it's a book or a podcast or a website or a support group or an organization, I wanted to make sure that where could you go find more information? Where can you find support? Where could you learn more? So that's kind of the process through the book. And that usually I'll beat you already to the next question. Who should read it? Who's this written for? So did I beat you? Did I beat you to the next question?
No, not yet. We'll see what you get. We'll see what happens.
Okay, all right. Well, you get the next one. But so I wrote it for military leadership. What do they need to know? What do they need to know? What do I wish my leaders knew? Because when my commanding officer found out after I ruptured my esophagus from purging so much, my commanding officer stood me at attention and said, there's no place in my Navy for you. And he didn't know what he didn't know, right? So military leadership, what do they need to know? Providers and clinicians. So I had several doctors help me with the clinical information in here and the data and citations, because some of them know about eating disorders, but they don't really understand military culture, or vice versa. Maybe they're, PTSD and they do things in the military, but they don't understand eating disorders. So there's It's for providers as well. It is for friends and family that want to know how to support somebody. And it is written if you yourself are struggling. If you are struggling with your relationship with food or your body, you don't have to have a diagnosis. You don't have to be sick. You don't have to be tiny. If you're struggling with that relationship, you deserve support. So I wrote it for them too.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I was looking, we looks like we had a couple questions. So she asks, do we have any research or studies that can support and guide everyone into safe and effective treatment for the health and welfare of Americans? That was a lot.
Can you read it again?
Yep. So do we have any research or studies that can support and guide everyone into safe and effective treatment for the health and welfare of Americans?
That's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, it's broad because there's a lot, but it depends.
There's lots of data. Yeah, there's lots of data around the eating disorders. In the military, not that much. We're working on getting more. But I'll tell you, even there's a study that showed between 2017 and 2021, reporting of eating disorders among active duty went up 74%. And that was just in that time period. So yes, there's lots of data we put it in the book, but guiding towards safe treatment. Yes. And again, there's lots of resources that will tell you how to navigate that treatment. In fact, there's a new book out. I need to pull up the actual title, but it's a CBT workbook of navigating eating disorders, but it's a new version and a version that we needed very, very much. And this version does not reference BMI in the treatment of eating disorders, which is just brilliant and absolutely needed because I don't know if you know it. You know what? Let's throw out a question. Maybe we'll answer here, or maybe people in the listening in would answer. But I want to know if you all know, when was BMI initially created? When did it initially become?
It's a good question.
When the aliens landed in Roswell, because they're the only ones that can meet those standards.
I'm gonna guess like the 1950s.
Good guess.
I think maybe 1960s or 70s.
Okay.
I'm going to say the Great
Maybe even the
Depression
80s.
era.
I
What?
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Great Depression era. They're like you're looking a little chubby. What are you eating? How many potatoes did you have? Like it was like an honesty system and not necessarily like a measuring instrument for fitness.
It was not meant for what we ended up using it for, but it was created in the 1800s.
Wow.
What was it created for? I mean, I know what we use it for today, but what was it originally created for? What was its intent?
So social status for European white men by European white men.
No wonder it never adjusts for anything that's larger than the norm.
Correct. Yeah. And so it's not an indicator of health. No, it's not. And so it's been implemented into different things. So this workbook that is treating eating disorders, in fact, in the past couple of months, the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they are looking at removing BMI from the diagnostic criteria for eating disorders from the DSM, because again. Eating disorders occur in any size body, and the impact is not correlated to your size. In fact, less than 6% of people with an eating disorder, less than 6% fall into the underweight category. The other 94% do not. And those other 94% are just as lethal and deadly as the 6%. So it's about time we get caught up with this conversation and look at treatment and support that isn't based off 1800s standards.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how they did the Fat Boy program during the Civil War. I'm still on that myself. I'm sorry.
We'll circle back this weekend. You'll still be stuck there.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think
say,
only the rich guys
that.
were fat back then because everyone else starved,
Yeah, that's why they called
You know.
the rich man's disease.
right? Because only the
Interesting.
rich people were fat.
Unfortunately,
I know
That's awesome.
my grandparents used to make fun of people. I know it's horrible, but if you saw a fat person when you were a kid, they said you'd want to run away because you just don't know, what they were eating, probably people. So,
What?
Hansel and Gretel.
right.
I was like, did you grow up in the Black Forest?
Well, grandma would die and they would cut her calves off or her glutes off, because there was no meat.
Dark
So, so you'd see a fat man walking down the street, you're like, oh my God,
I'm dead.
cannibal. But-
Stigma is real, and stigma is and it shows up everywhere. Honestly, stigma is in our medical community, right? We see medical weight stigma all the time. I can tell you, I have lived in all different size bodies, a smaller body, medium body. This is the largest body I have lived in. And I can tell you that I'm treated differently, even and up to and including the doctor. And so, I was a runner. I used to run half marathons. When I was out to sea and we didn't have flight ops, I did it on the flight deck, metal on metal, running in boots on metal does a lot to your ankles and your knees. And so, 20 years of that, when I go to the doctor and I say, oh, I got knee pain, many doctors will say, well, go lose weight and come back. Yeah, and no. So I tell everybody, ask your provider if they are aligned with Hayes or Hayes certified or in the Hayes system. Health at every size, okay? Because my knee still hurts the same it did when I was smaller then as I am now. I want you to tell me the problem with my knee, not what you think your problem with my weight is. And so it's really important. I want to be treated for every ailment in my body as if the person to the left and right of me would be treated regardless of size. Because again, there's so much stigma that, oh, if you're in a larger body, you're going to have heart issues. You're going to have these issues. That's stigma. That's not fact. If that was the case, then small people wouldn't have heart issues, would they?
Yeah. And I definitely understand what you're saying as far as like having like those kind of interactions with providers. I know for me, I had arterial blood clots and my left ventricle, which was shooting out systemically to like all my systems basically. And like no one could figure out the cause of it. And literally everyone arrived at the conclusion it was because I was fat. And I was much smaller than I am now. And I was like, what? I was like, they're like, yeah, we think you had arterial blood clots because you're fat. I was like, they're like, show me a study anywhere. And like, these are doctors and nurses coming to see me because I became a freak show. And so people will come and see me because I literally couldn't like avoid them even if I wanted to. And like, they would tell me all these things. And I was just like, you guys know I ran PT like every morning before patients, right? Like the only reason I failed my PT test is because I had arterial blood clots in both legs. Like,
yeah. And then what gets missed in the meantime, why you're told to go do that and whatnot. But we know that most providers, unless they are specifically pursuing additional education, they don't get more than 20 to 30 minutes on eating disorder education unless they pursue that.
Wow. I didn't realize it was so small. Like I would imagine it would be like, I guess I picture like nursing clinicals where you have to do so much time in all these different facilities parts, I guess. But I guess it makes you wonder about like what other things they need more training on.
All of it. I mean, you got doctors out there that think anxiety is nervous jitters. So, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And so, sis, do you have any upcoming events?
Well, we have the webinar on Wednesday, and March 18th will be, oh, perfect. You got the flyer. I love it. And March 18th, we will be in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, giving our medal training. And we're doing that in collaboration with Keys 365, which is free suicide prevention training, and they're going to be there doing their resilience training. So that is there in Fort Bragg, and yeah, those are the two like most the soonest. We are having our gala November 7th. That's in Tampa. If anybody is either in Tampa or wanting to get to Tampa to get some sunny Florida weather, that'll be November 7th. But other than that, I'm just hoping to go around and do more speaking engagements, more book signings, and of course, and we're doing a training in New Orleans next month as well. So yeah, I love going all around and meeting people and answering their questions, and hoping to plan a few more.
Well, I think that you're doing an amazing, we call it a rodeo round trip here in Texas, but I think that's amazing that you're doing so many speaking events and you're educating so many people. I think that it's so needed in the veteran community. So thank you absolutely for everything that it is that you do.
Thank you.
And so, Amelia, I think it's time for our knowledge drop.
That music never lasts long enough for me. So today I'm going to do a little bit of a different spin because, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to share out there. So last year, I know I missed it. There's a deadline for this option at the VA if it's impacting your life and if you qualify for it. And so, Brandy, I know that I need to get going on my clothing allowance, specifically in the area for prosthetics, things of that nature, because I have to get shoes every so often. Like I'm told I have to for my body and things of that nature. And so how do I go about specifically, how do I go about accessing this stuff or getting going on my clothing allowance that the VA provides?
So with the clothing allowance, it's important for everyone to remember that it's something that there's no back pay for. So say if you figure out 10 years later, like there's no back pay, it's entirely use or lose. I think it's 1,024. I may have gone up slightly. But how that works is what you would need to do is you would just need to have been seen or fitted for a prosthetic. It could be for anything that would rub or damage your clothing. It could be they're cracking down more on the creams and lotions, but there are some that do stain and discolor clothing. And you can file for independent allowances too. I think the most I've ever seen a veteran receive was $8,000. So it's like the things like a transferable wheelchair. If you have any AFO braces, which is like an artificial flexion orthotic. If you have lifts or you put something in your shoes insert wise and it damages your shoes. A lot of veterans, we don't really think about that. The things that we deal with and just replace as wear and tear is actually something that you can claim through the VA. Now you do have from January 1st to August 1st to file for it. With the clothing allowance, all you need is literally one sheet of paper. It's the VA form 108678. But literally, if you go to va.gov and type in military clothing allowance or veteran clothing allowance or whatever, it will come right up. And you can apply on va.gov. I personally prefer to go to my local prosthetics office at the VA and get the date stamp, so that way I have it for my records. But you just fill out the form front and the back. I literally will sit at the counter sometimes even and say, when was I fitted for my last brace? And they'll tell you, this is the date you were here. Or, if they don't tell you, you can pull your appointments, of course. But what you would do is it has to be fitted in the last 2 years. So whatever the device is, it has to be something that was issued in the last 2 years. And also keep in mind, anyone with prosthetics or braces, that they don't tell you is if you gain or lose 10 pounds, you have to be refitted. And that's something that is not talked about nearly enough. And that's why so many veterans walk around with braces that don't fit properly, and that can lead to injury too. But yes, so that is my assistant for the knowledge drop tonight about something that, yes, I got into a breakfast argument one time and I found out that I was supposed to have filed for 10 years So don't be me.
No, and that's good to know. I mean, that's why we need to share this information. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with it, Brandy, so that we can all learn a little bit more about what we have access to.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, it's just like learning the little things. You know, I consider myself an advocate that's seen a lot of things, but I still learn new things all the time, new resources or something I didn't know existed or that I could file for. But definitely file for your clothing allowance. You can take your time now. However, you don't want to wait till August 2nd and then be mad that you lost out on $1,000. I know I would be mad. So now that I know. So now you guys are aware. And if you have questions about anything in specifics, please do ask. So we have a question for you, Leah. He was saying, is the next Wednesday at the Lebanon VAMC, are you going to be at that location for your
No.
event?
Next Wednesday is virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah, next Wednesday, is virtual. That webinar is virtual. Now, March 18th is at the Fort Bragg Blue Cross Blue Shield. That one might not be on the website, but it will be up there by tomorrow. So I'll make sure that I add that on there by tomorrow. I'm trying to get caught up. But yeah, Wednesday, March 11th is.
Thank you, sis.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see the things. And so we're going to go ahead and close it up for tonight with going around and do some final thoughts. And we'll start with you, Miss Amelia.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you so very much, Leah, for bringing this topic to the table, because you're so accurate and it needs to be talked about. We need to discuss these things, and you cannot hide things in the dark and expect to move through it. And so I'm so very grateful for that. And also another thing that I wanted to point out that I learned tonight was you mentioned the HAES, health at every size. And so thank you for mentioning that, because that is something I'm going to go look up and see how that is applicable and how it can be utilized and what that looks like. So thank you so much for your knowledge and for your time tonight.
And what about you, Pacifica? You got to follow that up?
I'm just validated because whenever I go, they're always reminding me my BMI is 30. And I look at those people and I'm like, I could swing you around like a rag doll. Don't even talk about my BM, do you want to do the move program? Moving is not my problem, lady. But yeah, I'm validated to hear that the BMI thing is a scam, and it's from the 1800s where they literally starved. And so that's like a burden from my mind. But no, for real, the self-harm about the eating disorders and the over-exercising and the things people do, the seaweed wraps and the saunas and, the crazy things to make weight is something I think we need to talk about, because you're right. You can't, we can't make something go away if we won't shine light where darkness is. So you just shine a light on the darkness and talk about some of this stuff. So thank you.
And I guess what I would just have to say is that it was, so much information that I had never heard before today. This is why I love to do this podcast. And I'm so thankful to my co-host for riding with me through my adventures. And, it is a very needed topic. And I am happy to support and have you on again. Absolutely. It's been a great evening. And let us know how everything goes with the book. I'm excited for you, sis.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess my last thing to say that I always close out with is need a light, be a light. If you're in the dark, know that you won't be there forever. And if we made it to the other side and you got a little light to share, send it back. Send it back for those in the dark, or be the person that you needed when you were in that dark place. It'll shine some purpose on your life, and it helps us all work together to keep going. So need a light, be a light.
I love that. Well, that's it for us this evening, and we will see you guys back next week. And if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you need to reach out to us, please reach out to us and we will get you connected. And that's what it is about, is helping our brothers and sisters in arms. And that does not stop with our service. So have a good night, everybody. And Aurelia, take us away.
Hi, I'm Aurelia. Just a reminder, smash like, hit subscribe, and click the bell. Please give me my mommy some hearts. Yay, victories!
Nah.